goes back to undergraduate, where we were trauma bonded, taking Greek together. There is no fear like sitting in a Justin Rogers class. So we endured together and we survived because of each other. But Cameron is, he's been a youth minister several places. He's preached a couple places, and now he's working with the Lads to Leaders, and he's going to come and speak to us about all that's going on there.
We good? Good morning to you. First, I want to say thank you for the opportunity to talk to you about one of my favorite things in the whole world. Lads to Leaders, I would credit for a lot of what makes me me. When I was a kid, my parents moved from Florida to Georgia, middle Georgia in fact. We moved to Warner Robins, Georgia. And it was there that we didn't know that the Lads to Leaders program actually had its origin story there at the Warner Robins Church of Christ in Warner Robins, Georgia. When we moved there, my parents decided to, let's say, enroll my brother and I into this program. And without it, I wouldn't have wanted to pursue ministry in my early 20s. I am not a minister now, but I love to connect with ministers and churches, so I'm still kind of in a ministry, but not really. But anyways, I love Lads to Leaders, and I thank you for letting me talk to you about what it is. Show of hands, do you know what Lads to Leaders is? Have you heard it before? Okay. Another show of hands. If someone asked you what it was, you would have 100% confidence in explaining exactly what it is and what it entails. Good deal. Awesome. I want to talk to y'all later. I didn't expect to see any hands. I'm glad I see y'all. Here in a moment, we're going to try to play a video. This is my first slide. But here's a little disclaimer. Up in the sound booth, the presentation file is titled Hybrid Workshop. Because typically what happens is I have a 64-slide presentation, and I spend 1 minute per slide. No, I'm kidding. I spend a lot of time on a lot of slides, and it's a very comprehensive presentation. I took some points off of marketing material that we have, and put it into another kind of presentation. So it's a little different from what I would customarily present at a church. So y'all are guinea pigs. You're welcome. I'm going to press play. Very good.
Message that would change kids and families' lives for eternity. And nobody listened. What if you had a biblically based tool that would transcend generations and no one used it? What if you had a program that yielded an 85% return and kids and families being faithful in the Lord's church, and no one invested in it? 50 years ago, Dr. Jack Zorn assembled 8 boys in Warner Robins, Georgia for their first leadership class. 50 years later, over 250,000 participants are impacted by Lads to Leaders, the oldest and largest leadership training program in the Church of Christ. Lads to Leaders is producing more preachers than any other program in the country, has attendance of over 20,000 a year for the National Convention. Girls are learning to model themselves after the godly woman of Proverbs 31. Kids are being trained in the areas of scripture reading, learning the art of debate to defend God's word, learning to say the books of the Bible, speeches, leading songs. Here's the proof. 14 years ago, the son of an elder got involved in Lads to Leaders. Today, he leads us in worship. Today, he's training the leaders for the future. But the question is, are you listening?
I'm listening.
I'm listening.
I'm listening.
I'm listening.
I'm listening. I'm listening.
I'm listening.
because it was volunteer-based. Some church down in Miami, Florida said, can we make y'all a video that it's just a snapshot video that you can play to anybody? You can send them this video link and it gives them an idea of what the program is. We said, sure. We had no idea it was going to be a decent quality video. You know, someone says, can I make you something? You don't really know how it's going to go. But this time, it went really well. And I'm very proud of that video. It touched on a few things that I hope to elaborate on in my time with you this morning, which I'll lay it out for you. I have a few points that I'd like to share about the program, and then afterwards, I've got several of our book materials on display up here that we produce in-house. So there's going to be some presentation and then some times for Q&A. Side note, if you have a question at any point in this presentation about Lads to Leaders, raise your hand and we'll talk about it. But I'll allow some time at the end for y'all to come up, peruse through some of the things that I brought, and ask questions if you'd like to. Lads to Leaders is meant for all ages. From 3 to 103, there is something for you in Lads to Leaders. Now, if you're 104, I'm sorry, I don't have anything for you. I'm kidding, of course. If you're 104, we've got something for you. But from 3 to 103 is something we like to say in the office. And we mean that. Because what makes a congregation strong? Well, it's the participation of every member in it. And we like to say that Lads to Leaders doesn't build preachers. It doesn't build leaders, even though our mission statement is building godly leaders. Where does the true work come from in the lives of a young person? Well, in their home. It comes from the encouragement. Right here in the church, y'all build the next generation of leaders, don't you? Y'all are the ones that sink time and effort and energy, edification into the next generation of preachers, song leaders, and the like. What we like to do at Lads to Leaders is provide the congregations tools in that effort. And this year's theme for 2025 comes out of the book of Genesis, and our theme is God meant it for good. So you'll notice several of our materials in our store is themed around those words right there, God meant it for good. And around Easter time, actually on Easter, we'll have thousands, that's right, thousands of families come to a convention center. We have 10 locations across the United States. 6 in the Bible Belt, was traditionally known as the Bible Belt. And there, they will get rewarded for all of the hard work they put into the program. Some kids will also do their participation in events there at the convention centers, but each year comes with its own theme, and this year comes out of Genesis. I said all ages as one of my first points about Lads to Leaders. Raise your hand if you've heard of Bible Bowl. That's one of our events in Lads to Leaders, and it's perhaps one of our most popular. But you know, Bible Bowl is really great, and it encourages kids to sit down with a Bible book and learn about it, and they answer trivia questions. You'll know how Bible Bowl works. But in case a kid is invited to a game show on the book of Genesis in 2025, the things they learned in Bible Bowl, you know, it would be great for a trivia game. But what about those spiritually applicable lessons in the books, in the Bible books that we choose as theme books, that maybe get left out in a trivia-style game? Well, that's what this is all about. Pearls is one of our events in Lads to Leaders. We call it an event because when someone elects into this event, Pearls, they can spend 13 weeks, Bible teachers, that's for you. You can spend 13 weeks going through some of the lessons that you would find in a Bible book and apply it into a curriculum for it. Opportunities are everywhere in congregations, as long as we seize them, right? Lads to Leaders is, like I said a moment ago, not something that does the work for the congregation. It provides the tools for a congregation if they want to pursue building up leaders in their church. One thing that makes Lads to Leaders different from other programs is we focus on that effort year-round. So when you open up our ladstoleaders.com website, you'll see a ton of information available. A ton of it. And a lot of it has to do with, well, convention. That one date on the calendar that thousands of people come to participate in and experience. But the hard work that gets put in, that really sinks into a kid's life and a family's life, is what happens throughout the year. So some of the things, yes, that kids do at convention is what gets the focus. But my favorite part about Lads to Leaders is what happens all year, 365 days of the calendar. What we believe in is what gets rewarded gets repeated. So if you take the time to invest in a kid and you let them know that you're doing a great job in what you're trying to do, you'll see more and more and more of that kind of behavior. Something else that sets Lads to Leaders apart is our classroom materials. You know, I talk about some of the events of Lads to Leaders, like Pearls, like Bible Bowl, like song leading and speech, things like this. Classroom materials that we produce in-house also make us different from other leadership programs. This is perhaps my Cameron's favorite thing that we produce, because long gone are the days when you see a congregation with a second grade classroom, a third grade classroom, fourth grade classroom. You know, the average attendance of a Church of Christ in the United States right now is 56 members. Just 56. A sample size like that wouldn't produce enough kids to have a second grade, third grade, fourth grade classroom. Instead, we're seeing Bible class teachers, right, try to give one lesson to multiple age groups in one classroom. If maybe you have someone in mind that puts a lot of time and effort into lessons that will fit a huge sample size of age groups in a classroom. Well, we had brilliant minds, in my opinion, I'm biased, we had brilliant minds come together and build a material for Bible class teachers and students. This, for example, is the student workbook. It comes in pairs, a student edition and a teacher edition. But what is it? It is Bible class material for a whole quarter, 13 weeks. And inside, which I invite you to come up here and take a look, inside has engaging handouts that you can give to kids, one lesson, but multiple handouts. In case you've got a Bible class teacher that's new to the Bible class teaching thing, well, if they purchase a teacher's workbook, then it takes a lot of the guesswork of unfamiliarity with teaching Bible classes out of the equation. You open it up, and it's almost script style of what a Bible class teacher who's new to the thing can just start teaching one lesson to multiple age groups in a classroom. Something else we got, and it's new this year. Wilderness Challenge. Raise your hand if you've heard of a thing called Boy Scouts. Yeah, a lot of people have heard of Boy Scouts. Well, Boy Scouts recently has taken a turn ideologically that many of us would not support and would not in any way want our kids to participate in. Well, Lads to Leaders said, well, there's still a lot of good things that can come from getting kids out into God's creation and exploring it and learning some practical lessons, you know. So why don't we take a stab at something like Boy Scouts? Wilderness Challenge is born. 8 lessons, and each lesson has to do with, say, one of them is, how to pack a bag, what to pack, how to build a fire, how to build a shelter, things like this. And each lesson comes with a spiritual application story. For example, as you're teaching, young John how to start a fire, build a fire, keep it going, he's learning also about Moses and the burning bush. So you see the connection, fire, fire. Now, we're really proud of that. Proven results is another reason to consider Lads to Leaders in your program. You may have recalled a moment in the video that I played for you. The host guy, I forget his name, said that Lads to Leaders proves 85% return. With the style that Lads to Leaders has adopted, rewarding kids for hard work, we have learned, and this is learned from a survey put out in 2019. I want to read it the right way. The retention rates of youth involved with Lads to Leaders is proven with 85% of participants that were fully involved with Lads to Leaders church activities are still faithful to the church 10 years after high school graduation. Over 50 years of putting in the work, we have learned that kids that are active in Lads to Leaders and families that are active in Lads to Leaders, or at least the spirit of what it's about, stay faithful to the church 10 years after high school graduation. You can tell by these photos, we just have a very, very boring time in the Lads to Leaders program, can't you? You can see that in the photos. I'm kidding, of course. Another thing that's special about Lads to Leaders is our Bartimaeus encouragement, our Bartimaeus participation. We have brothers and sisters in the Church of Christ that are special needs, those perhaps who are mentally handicapped. They are not exempt. They are not pushed out of view. They are encouraged as well to jump into the program. There is something for them to benefit from. Here's a beautiful story that I love to share with congregations. This gentleman, his name is Joe Bob. I'm not sure if that's actually his name, but that's what he tells you his name is. He's 38 physically, but mentally he's not. He was kicked in the head at 3 years old by a mule. And when it was 3 years ago, excuse me, when he went to convention and was awarded with a medal around his neck for completing year-round song leading, that is practicing, getting up in front of a congregation and leading the song and keeping time and things like this. That changed Joe Bob. And guess what? Today, he's still wearing that medal around his neck. So you're seeing a lot of these kinds of stories come out of the Lads to Leaders program because of our interest in investing into this next generation. In Matthew chapter 19, in Matthew chapter 18, Jesus shares some words about the importance of investing in your kids. First, in Matthew chapter 18, verse 3, he says to become like children, because if you don't, you're not getting it. I'm paraphrasing, of course. And in Matthew chapter 19, verse 14, who does he say will be the ones to be granted the kingdom of heaven? Children. So the importance of dumping time and energy and love into their skills, into their lives is of vital importance. These blocks right here are to exemplify how many events are in our program that I didn't discuss. We have more than 50 events in our program, and I talked about a few of them. But to talk about and spend time on every single one of our events would have you here way longer than you want it to be. But after, the ceremony is done on Easter weekend at convention, award ceremonies happen on Friday and Saturday of Easter weekend. On Sunday, there is a worship service put on by the young men who participated in Lads to Leaders. For example, the sermon portion of the worship service is brought by those who practice their speech. The song leading is led by the young men who practiced all year round a song, and the Bible passages are being led by young men who have practiced getting up in front of the crowd, speaking emphatically, putting emphasis where emphasis needs to be, pausing where pausing needs to happen. And this is done in front of thousands of families who have dedicated throughout the year to look like the family God designed. Mom, dad, children. And it's a beautiful thing. We like to say that Lads to Leaders is a perfect combination because it involves so many ages and it really encompasses skills that you would find in a worship service, like getting up song leading and giving a speech, but it involves action, events that are dedicated to service. Good Samaritan, one of our popular events. Anybody can step into this event because it's all about putting your heart where it needs to be, that being a heart of service. Bible events, communication events, things that things that are all about putting skills into our young people. We have a good time at Lads to Leaders. My last point, I'll leave with this one. It's 10:30 right now, and I want to give us some time if anybody's got any questions or if they want to come up and peruse some of our material. Biblical soundness is what you should hope to see out of a leadership program for churches, right? Well, for 50 years, we have ensured that the things we produce and the things we encourage, the things we ask kids and families to participate in is biblically sound. The board of directors that we have at Lads to Leaders are men who have dedicated decades of biblical of time into biblical studies. The materials we produce are made by preachers, made by biblical scholars. You'll perhaps recognize some of the names as authors in some of these. Dr. Matt Guy, Greg Tidwell, Justin Rogers. But if a leadership program is nothing more than an opportunity to have fun and to be entertained, there's a place for that. But a leadership program is meant to do that. It's meant to provide tools for the young people that enter it, that they can use those tools to become an effective leader later on. Something I want to go, side note. Brotherhood schools like Free Harmon, Faulkner, Harding, they will recognize the hard work of young people that go through the Lads to Leaders program and offer them scholarships into their schools. So we'll have kids send in scholarship applications to Lads to Leaders that will be picked up by Brotherhood schools. Because Brotherhood schools see the hard work that's put in to Lads to Leaders and say, we want those kinds of kids at our schools. We have a good time, and we are all about staying consistent. The spiritual building up of our kids is what it's all about. We want our churches to be strong, and we start with our kids. We want our churches to be strong, we focus on our families. We want our churches to be strong, we encourage everybody to step up and pitch in. Okay, back to the first thing. So here, I'll pause and offer the floor to anybody who's got a question about Lads to Leaders, to raise your hand. Yes, sir? Yeah.
So I realize it's probably different, but just for a typical church of 40 or 100 people, what does the program look like? Does the church pick a couple activities to participate in, or how does that work?
For a church just starting out,
Yes,
of less than 100,
around.
so what's important is for any program to get started, you need a group leader. And what does a group leader do? Primarily, find out what the kids and the families are interested in participating, and then getting that information to us. Our national office is in Montgomery, Alabama. It's on Faulkner University. And that group leader will find out what the church members want to do. Let us know about it so we can start preparing their awards, and anticipating that they complete the expectations of those events. Each event comes with a set of requirements and standards. A very large rule book, 150 pages long, explains what each event is and what's wrapped into each event as far as requirements. And if a kid checks all the boxes, say for Good Samaritan, he's gone to this house and he's done this good thing, then we'll have his reward ready for him at convention. After that, after a group leader has been selected and everyone has had time to look at what we have to participate in, we just start working. Working at the events that the kids have selected and the families have selected.
Wouldn't you suggest for a new congregation possibly to select 3 or 4 things where kind of get their feet in and get familiar with how things are done And if you've got a congregation where you have one or two, they're doing 20 or 30 different things, because it's records,
Mhm.
it's registrations, it's lots of different things for each event. Would you suggest maybe 2 or 3 or possibly 4 different types of popular categories that are going to get the young people involved in it and familiar with it?
Very good point. Absolutely. For a new group stepping into the Last Leaders program, if a kid sees all the things that interest him and wants to do all the things, that's a lot. That can be really overwhelming real quick. So you raise a good point.
It's overwhelming for your group leader too.
Good.
because
Oh,
they
yeah.
have a lot of,
Oh yeah, a lot of forms to fill out, yeah. But that's a very good point. For a group starting out, Last Leaders, starting small, seeing what can be realistically accomplished, starting out, you get your feet wet, very good point. Yeah, picking out a few things that interest you and working hard and doing good with
Can
those.
you, can you share with us some distinctive points, like song leading and, leading the whole worship service? Is there any other thing that, all of the girls?
Yes.
I mean, they're gonna be felt left out. Don't do that off the bat.
So, I should say this.
I mean, there's some, can you come off up your head?
So, our name on our letterhead is Last Leaders and Leaderettes. That's a mouthful in most situations, so we just say Last Leaders or L2L. But for every event that a young man can participate in, there is a complementary or mirrored event that a young lady can participate in. Will we have our young ladies gearing up for speeches to deliver in worship service? Well, no. But they can put in the time to building up a speech and delivering, say they're invited to a ladies' day or prayer breakfast or something like this. Every event that's offered in Last Leaders has a mirrored version of it for young ladies. So there is absolutely just as many things for young ladies to do as young men. Yes, ma'am.
What about sponsorships, children that maybe don't have the means to participate as far as?
The board, absolutely. The board has decided, and they decided decades ago, that if there is a family or a kid that wants to participate in the program but didn't have the means to do so, there is a scholarship for them waiting. All they have to do is apply for it, and those funds are taken care of. Yes, ma'am. If somebody wants to participate in the program, if they want to get to convention, but they don't have the means, we will make sure they do. Yes, ma'am. Typically, it's the case that when a church starts the program, the congregation, in most cases, the congregation will fund the trip from, home congregation to convention that gets, that gets funded by a lot of L trips that we see. But we have tried since 2017 to keep the price of getting to convention the same. Now, I don't know if y'all have been living since 2017. Not a lot of things have stayed the same price since 2017, but we have tried to keep the price of attending convention the same, which is $45 for entry. What does that $45 get you? For every person that comes to convention, on average, they get 5 awards. That can come in the form of a medal or a ribbon or a banner or certificate or a trophy or something like this. Does that mean every person gets 5? No, but on average, those who attend, on average, every person gets 5 awards. So that's what that $45 covers, and the wristbands and programs that get printed. But to your point, if someone wants to come, they don't have the means, we'll find a way. Any other questions?
Do you accept sponsorship there, like if, we could give you money to sponsor children in this program?
Absolutely.
Do you ever do that?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. I'll say this. You may be asking yourself, how does life...
That's wrong answer.
Good morning. You may be asking, how does Last Leaders afford to do what it does? Donations, primarily. Last Leaders is what it is, and it has been alive for as long as it has been because of donations. For people that have the heart to give those funds to the program, we reroute those funds to the kids. We try to produce what we produce in our store at cost to print, so when someone comes up and they're interested, then cost should never be a factor. That's what I'm getting at. Any other questions about Last Two Leaders? We have so many things in our store. I only brought a few of our most popular, but as you can imagine, over 50 years, we've been producing curriculums and books and how-to guides and things like this. We've got a very large archive in our store. LastTwoLeaders.com is where you can go to learn more about us and the things that we have to offer. So thank you for your time this morning. If you've got any questions, please stop me in the hallway in between services or something like this. I'd love to talk to you. So you are welcome to come up and look at some of the things I brought if you're interested. Thank you.